Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, July 22nd regular City Council meeting. With that, Jeff Albrecht, if you could please call roll.
Councilmember DeLira.
Here.
Councilmember Fajarin.
Here.
Councilmember Guido. Here. Councilmember Parks. Councilmember Weller.
Present.
Councilmember Wright.
Councilmember Parks requested to be excused. With that, I'd entertain a motion for her to be excused for this meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Related, it passes. Related to community announcements, a few different ones. First of all, repaving of the Pullman Transfer Bus Station on the corner of State Street and Davis Way will begin on Monday, July 28th. It should take about a week to complete. Bus transfers will occur at Flag Lane on Washington State University campus during the repaving, and bus stops will be adjusted for the Loop, Silver, Blue, and Paradise routes to accommodate this change. Schedules and transfers should return to normal on Monday, August 4th, and you can visit pullmanwa.gov/transit to learn more. National Night Out is Tuesday, August 5th. From 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Rainey Park. Come hang out with the Pullman Police Department at this free, family-friendly event. It's going to be a lot of fun. Look forward to seeing everybody there. The City of Pullman will be transitioning to an all-new utility billing access portal, fall of 2025. The new portal will give you more options to pay your bills, access your account information, and request service adjustments. For more information, you can go to pullman-wa.gov/utility. The 2025 Concerts in the Park season is in full swing. Come to Rainey Park on Wednesdays from 6 to 8 for live music and lots of fun. This week's band is Rias Northwest, and next week's band is Blue Highway. And this Friday's movie in the park at Rainey Park is Cars. The movie starts at dusk, but head down a few hours early for the car show from the Like-Minded Society in Rainey Park parking lot starting at 6 p.m. Rainey Park Pool will be closed on Friday, July 25th for a swim meet. The Pullman Aquatic and Fitness Center will be open and available from 5:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you'd like to swim. And on to the library. Celebrate a summer full of reading, imagination, and color. Each day you dress up and visit the library, you'll receive a small prize for Spirit Week themes. And you can go to nlp/youth.org for that information. The last day to turn in your summer reading log is Thursday, July 31st. The summer reading grand prize winner will be announced on Friday, August 1st. To see more listing of other community events, visit the city's tourism page at visit-pullman.com/events. As you can see, there's a lot of great events that are happening with that. Continuing on, the mission of the City of Pullman is to provide the highest quality of life through essential infrastructure, public safety, recreation, and welcoming growth within the constraints of a fiscally responsible government. We carry this out through the work of our dedicated elected leaders and incredible staff who are focused on maintaining a welcoming, active, visionary community that values its college town atmosphere, high technology research and industries, and that fosters quality of life for all age groups, a business-friendly environment, and fiscal integrity in our government. And that's a mission statement within the city. As a city family and close community, it's hard to have a leader step down and leave. Last week, Fire Chief Nash, who was appointed in February and brought 30 years of experience, leadership, and dedication to his role, announced his resignation effective August 1st. He was only in his leadership role for a short time, but decided it wasn't a good fit. We appreciate his time within the City of Pullman and wish him the best as he returns to his previous home. During this transition, city leadership and department staff are meeting to determine the best long-term solutions for filling the position of fire chief. The city will keep the community informed as these decisions are made. And please know that our fire department is always dedicated to providing the best service to the Pullman community, and our current command structure has the leadership necessary to step up during this time and ensure that our service doesn't waver. And I thank you for your understanding during this transition. Last two announcements I have. One is the City Council requested a public hearing on fireworks that will be set for our next council meeting, August 12th. And related to the city administrator search, in 2 weeks, we will have a community open house to meet the candidate finalists for the city administrator position. That will be on Wednesday, August 6th. You'll have an opportunity to hear from the candidates, talk to the candidates one-on-one, and then more information will be coming forward relating to time and location as those get finalized. And that's a long list of announcements. Continuing on, our next item on the agenda is non-agenda related community comments. This agenda item is the first of two opportunities during this meeting for the public to bring comments to the attention of elected officials. Specifically, this item is reserved for public comment, concerns, or other information not related to a previous public hearing or final action on this agenda. Final action items include confirmation appointments, consent agenda, and regular agenda items. This agenda item for comments will not exceed 30 minutes in total. Comments are to be directed to the mayor or the city council as a body. No comment should be directed to an individual council member. Also, RCW 4217A 555 doesn't allow for community comments to be used to support a political campaign. And with that, is there anyone who would like to provide community comments on a non-agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move on to city council member comments. And with that, I'll start with council member Fajarin.
Thank you. I too want to thank Chief Nash for his time in Pullman, and best luck on his next chapter. In addition, I just want to remind the public that July 18th ballots were mailed out to everybody in Pullman, and you have until August 5th to get it in the mail. Just want to thank everybody who is running, some who are in the audience today. I appreciate you. You represent the best in Pullman, and good luck.
With that, Councilmember Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would echo the comments of my colleague here in that I do wish my best to Chief Nash. He was wonderful while he was here, and in the short time that he joined us, he did have an impact, and I, for one, am sorry to see him go. And as well as the voting period, yes, please, everyone, fill out your ballots, get them in, and get them mailed by August 5th or dropped off. Every vote is important, so thank you for that attention. I was unable to be at the last council meeting. I had an unavoidable family emergency. However, I did watch the proceedings, and I feel compelled to comment. I was very disappointed in the direction that the fireworks discussion took at that particular meeting. And my disappointment is in the fact that we have a very strong and vital relationship with our partner, Washington State University. And I felt that the way that discussion went forward certainly did not show the level of that relationship. I would acknowledge that for groups of people that we do have problems with fireworks. They're not ongoing, they're scheduled, and I'm certain that had we been able to discuss this in more detail with the administration of WSU, that we could have arrived at a more equitable solution than all of the direction that the discussion took. Calling out a WSU administrator at a luncheon about the fireworks is not appropriate. Bringing it out to the attention of all of our viewers, our constituency, without having had some detailed discussion with WSU was not appropriate. And I just want to go on record that I do not agree with the direction that this is taking. Thank you.
Councilmember Guido.
No comment.
Councilmember Weller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you for those comments, Pat. I think that's definitely a good thing to keep in mind, and my apologies for calling out an administrator at WSU. We do have a very strong relationship. As people know, we do have a town gown organization, and it has been very good. I would like to first read something. So I'd like to thank everyone for the feedback on the WSU game fireworks, whether in person, online, or in email. When I was going to WSU, and afterwards with season tickets, I went for the games. I didn't realize how important fireworks have now become to the family or to the fan experience and how they add to the financial stability of the university and in connection Pullman. This topic is an exploration that has been spurred by public concerns on fireworks at the WSU Bailey Brayton baseball field, which is about 100 yards from the edge of Pullman neighborhoods next to Orchard Drive. It is good to hear from all different sides on community topics such as this, whether it's from 1,000 people or just one, whether it's visitors, students, or longtime residents. It is also important for us as council members to listen with empathy, try to understand, ask questions, and find the best solution, even if it doesn't meet everyone's wants. With this subject, I have heard from Pullman community members and Cougs from around the world. Some have suggested drone shows, others informed me about low decibel fireworks. Still others felt that having one show at the end of the season would be best, or no fireworks at all. We all know that both WSU and Pullman are going through some challenging times, and it is important to find a way through this together, a middle ground. I believe this can be achieved through enhanced communication and notice. One concern passed to me from community members was a lack of information of when fireworks shows would occur, which meant that they were unprepared or surprised. Some have argued that the information is on the WSU website or through Cougs social media. However, not everyone follows WSU or searches through their websites. I feel extending the reach of these communications on our own website and social media channels can provide additional notice and may even increase attendance for WSU events. I anticipate there will be concerns from our city attorney on this proposal. That's why I'm bringing it up today in advance of the public hearing on WSU event fireworks in August. Furthermore, I contacted the Municipal Research Service Center, which handles questions of legal, procedural, and other issues from elected officials. They don't perceive any problems with sharing information from WSU on our website or platforms as long as we aren't promoting businesses. But it's always important to check with our city attorney, and I have that information for Thad, which I let him know. Look, I truly feel that while this discussion is a difficult topic to broach, it will ultimately lead to an even better future collaboration and open further doors. At the very least, we, as the city of Pullman, can provide better notice of when the fireworks shows happen to better inform our community and help them be prepared. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember DeLira.
No comment.
The next item is committee commissioner reports. I'm not seeing Larry here.
He's running late.
Oh, it came back on. It's okay. So I'd like to ask the council if we could pause the committee report from the Environmental Resilience Commission until later in the meeting. Is there an agreement with that? Okay. Oh, Larry, Larry, you're up. Or do you need a break, or you? So with that, and I very much appreciate the work that Larry Clark does as our chair from the Environmental Resilience Commission. And as you take your breath, I'll let you enter into your report with that.
Well, thank you, Mayor Benjamin and council members. My apologies. I thought the meeting was at 7. And I do want to thank Ariel for emailing me and allowing me to get here, I see, just in time. So appreciate it. And I'll just have some comments today talking about a little bit of our work that we've been doing on the Environmental Resilience Commission in this past year, and a little peek at the work we're continuing to do to pursue the goals that we've set forward. So, first of all, just a brief overview of the mission and vision of ERC. You know, we're developed to recommend innovative and collaborative actions to the council and for the city to mitigate climate change contributions and to really build that resilience and sustainability throughout the city. And we'll do that, you know, by advancing environmental stewardship and looking for healthy and equitable ways that we can all engage in making a better city for future generations. This is a list of our current members, and we've had a little bit of turnover, but I think we've also been really blessed that we've had a number of commission members who have remained and have been able to kind of work together to develop a long-term plan that I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. To start off with, our 2025 goals are to be a resource, collaborate with the city officials and staff on these climate actions and some of the sustainability initiatives, and really prioritize resilience and transformation towards sustainability in many of the actions that the city will do. To do that, we also want to engage and educate the community and really collaborate with community partners, gather input, and really promote action across the city, not just with a small group, but to build some consensus. And then finally, to identify metrics to measure the effectiveness of the things we want to do. All right, so for objectives, this is where we get into the meat and potatoes of it all. And we started off kind of consolidating some of our previous goals that we were looking at into developing a broader plan, similar to what other cities have done. They've called it, you know, climate action plans or environmental sustainability plans. And so we built off the name of the commission and we call it an environmental resilience action plan. And that's really with measurable goals, practical, achievable policies, and some clear actions that the city and the community have a consensus on. You know, really what we can work together to do to build a more resilient community as we're facing these changes in our climate. So as part of that, here are the steps that we're looking at. Create a timeline, steps to build an effective plan. Complete an inventory of our current actions and policies in the city. Create and implement a survey to gather community input. Present at community service organizations and participate in community events to gather input and listen to what community needs and desires are. And meet with regional and local organizations to build partnerships like Washington State University's Sustainability Committee, different conservation and environmental groups. And the city of Moscow, you know, they have a similar type of committee over there. And I know a couple of people on there, and we want to see if there are joint actions we might be able to take. There's also part of this looking at ethics for preserving green spaces and natural areas. And that includes native species and introducing those. And then finally, present the progress of the plan to council members and the mayor in December. And continuing with some of the objectives, collaborate with Pullman School District to form a youth advisory council, develop a framework for a permanent staff position for the council and city to consider, identify and facilitate at least 2 grant proposals to expand our resilience, identify and participate and collaborate with those organizations that I talked about. So here's the status of where we're at with our work. Where we've started drafting section 1, we're actually quite a ways through. That's the assessment of current initiatives and needs, and that's actually turned out to be quite a hefty part of this, really looking at what the city has done already, but also, some of the areas that we're looking for metrics in terms of what the city might be able to do in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We have developed a list of potential partners, the community organizations. We're now planning for a meeting with them just to gather their input. Really it's an open forum in some ways. We talk about the work of the commission, but also what do they want to see from the city and how can we work together to make us a more sustainable city and take some of these actions we're talking about. Plan for outreach events, be at the Lentil Festival, and again, just a chance to introduce the commission and the fact that Pullman is working on this and really wants to get the thoughts and opinions of our community members. And of course, the Lentil Festival is our signature event and we get a lot of people there, so we're hoping to make a lot of connections. We've identified several grants that could support Pullman's work in environmental resilience, and we're narrowing that down to the ones that seem the most feasible for the type of work we're looking at. And when we have some of those identified, then we'll bring them to the council and the mayor to look at them and see if they make sense for us to pursue as a city. And then we've also drafted that framework for a staff position. We have some tweaks we're working on, and then we'll forward it on for consideration. Obviously, the budget cycle is passed, so this is not really feasible for a staff position, but we'd like to have it for future reference if the council and the city decides to move forward with this staff position. Any questions before I continue on? Or do you want to save them until the end? Okay. I think I just have a couple more things. Future plans and needs. We're really looking at those effective means of communicating with Pullman citizens, really getting them involved in this work. This is key to everything we do. I know everybody here cares about that deeply as well. And, we have such a scattered environment for news and media. And one thing that we've really thought about is that direct outreach, visiting people where they are. The Lentil Festival, meetings of different community organizations, the Lions, Kiwanis, and other groups. But that's an ongoing piece of work, and hopefully will continue to be a big piece of the commission's work ongoing. Coordination with other environmental and sustainability organizations. Again, this is that connection point so that we're all working together, and we're going to hopefully identify areas, say with WSU, that we can collaborate on. Finally, we're looking at potential funding for membership in a local government resilience organization. The one that we've identified is called ICLEI, and please don't ask me to remember what the actual acronym is because it's long, but I think it's Local Environmental Initiatives is the last bit. It's a really good organization. Our colleagues in Moscow are part of this organization, as are a number of cities within Washington State. And they have technical support, metrics tools, best practices, comparison data with other cities of similar size and within the region. And so I believe $1,200 is the cost of membership, and so we'll be forwarding a request for future consideration for the council to see if maybe this is a good fit for us to get some of that technical support we're perhaps lacking. And that's my presentation. Questions?
With that,
thoughts?
any questions? Councilmember DeLera.
Thank you so much for all your work in this commission. It's really exciting. In terms of the Environmental Resilience Action Plan, when do you anticipate it being daylighted to the public or to council? Would that be in December or?
We're hoping to have, pardon me, we're hoping to have a draft to forward by December. And I think we're well along in our different areas. Even though we've only drafted the first section, there are other parts that we've been working on ahead. And so the plan is to have an initial draft by December.
Councilmember Guido?
Thanks for this update, Larry. A comment and a question. So I was waiting, and you got to it on the last slide about, apropos of our last conversation about WSU as a partner. So they're a critical partner in this as they make a large impact on our environment as a whole, right? So getting their input and getting their expertise as well and what their plans are for resilience as it relates to the campus and their activities, I think are going to be critical. And then when you mention best practices, so are you folks doing any of that research on best practices and then making some recommendations, or is that more the next step?
That will be part of our recommendation in the Environmental Resilience Action Plan. MSRC has a number of best practices from cities within Washington State. Did I remember that right? MSRC?
MRSC.
Thank you. I knew something was wrong. But they have a number of best practices that will incorporate into the Environmental Resilience Action Plan draft. ICLEI also, they have some good ideas from across the country, actually across the globe, but primarily focused on the U.S. And yeah, that will definitely be part of the draft action plan.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fajarin?
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate the work that you and the committee have been doing. I know that the committee has been active for 3 years or 2?
3 years.
3 years. I know kind of in the lifetime of a committee that's really short, but you have done an incredible amount of work with the committee, so thank you. Just kind of a high-level question about the framework for the permanent staff position. Just what kind of gap do you see that permanent staff position filling, and potentially in the long run, how could it possibly, or what are the potentials of cost savings with that staff member?
I can't address the cost savings aspect at this point, but what we see is a real need for some of the technical support and a lot of the work that could be done incorporating environmental resilience into different city plans. This really crosses, as I understand it, across a lot of different departments, a lot of different aspects of the city. And the staff framework that we'll be forwarding is a way to consider somebody who would be able to work within the existing staffing of the city and looking at how those different departments could work together for environmental resilience. And that's a little vague because I don't have the framework right in front of me, but that's kind of the broad strokes.
I know it's to come, so thank you. I appreciate the answer.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Larry. Now, one thing that I noticed on your slide when you're listing committee members, it looks like you have one seat that's open currently.
That's correct.
That's correct. So if anybody's interested in joining in the effort that's going on, please, there's an opportunity that, are you agreeing? He only lists. Okay, I only saw 6 total.
I trust Aaron.
I would trust
I think we're
Ariel
actually
also.
So we actually may be full. And thank
Okay.
you again for appointing other commission members because they've been a great help ongoing. And just, if you don't mind, just a moment, I'd love to call out our other commission members who work very hard, and I appreciate everything they put into this commission.
That, and also for Ariel and the work that she's doing in support of this too. So thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Larry.
Thank you very much.
The next item is City Council future regular agenda requests. Is there anyone who has a future agenda request? Seeing none, we then move on to community comments on final action items in the agenda. This agenda item is the second of 2 opportunities during this meeting for the public to bring comments to the attention of the elected officials on any agenda item that the City Council will take final action at this meeting. This excluding items where public comment was previously accepted. This exclusion attends to prior public hearings. Final action items includes confirmation appointments, consent agenda items, and regular agenda items. So this item for comments is not to exceed 30 minutes in total. Comments are be directed to the mayor or the city council as a body. No comments should be directed to an individual council member. Is anyone who would like to provide community comments on final agenda item? Seeing none, we move on to confirmation appointments. The first one you'll see is an appointment for Kaylee Riggs to the Historic Preservation Commission with the term expiring December 31st of 2026. And I'd entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Is there a second? And second. For that, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next one is a motion to appoint a new library services director. Start date of August 1st, and this is Stacy Echanova. You'll see from her bio that she's worked both on the Washington State University side and also the Latah County side, so she is definitely familiar with our area, and I'd welcome a motion for appointment.
Second.
Yeah. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so her start date is August 1st. I know she's wasn't able to be here tonight, otherwise she would like to have been here. And so next on to presentations, and I'll start with Kurt Damon related to public memory garden presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, members of council. So a little background information on how we got here this evening. So back in about mid-February, the city was approached by an ad hoc group now known as the Palouse Regional Memory Garden Group, led by former Mayor Karen Kiesling, about the concept of a memory garden being developed here in Pullman. So after some discussions with the ad hoc group and the concept and looking at a potential of a couple sites here in Pullman, staff and the group that we're working with felt Lawson Gardens was an appropriate location for a memory garden to be developed. And a couple just reasons that come forward is the formal garden setting and the atmosphere that Lawson Garden provides. And in talking with Alan Davis, former Parks Director, who's also part of the ad hoc group, he felt that a memory garden really would meet the vision of the donor, Gerald Lawson, and the vision he had for the park setting there. And then also, much of the infrastructure is already in place at Lawson Gardens, so we're not starting from the ground up and putting in things like a parking lot and restrooms and those type of things. So moving forward, on May 14th, the idea of a memory garden was proposed to the Parks and Rec Commission. And the concept and location of Lawson Gardens was approved by the commission. Then on June 17th, City Council accepted a donation of $900,000 from Eleanor McCloskey for the development of a memory garden at Lawson Gardens. So tonight we have Bob Scarfo, landscape architect, who has been working with the ad hoc group and myself, and he's here to present on what makes a memory garden unique. So I'll turn it over to Bob at this time.
I really appreciate the opportunity to share this with you. If there are any questions along the way, please ask. As Kurt mentioned, wrong button. As Kurt mentioned, well, let's start here. There's two questions I want to ask. I'd like to ask the council members. One is, how many of you have been, at this point in your life, touched by someone who is living with dementia? Okay. When I've done this with neighborhood groups here in Spokane, it's usually about 70%. So the other question is, how many of you have a favorite place you can go to where you can just totally relax and become rejuvenated? We say most of you or all of you? Okay. The reason I'm asking this is that there's a need for people who have been diagnosed with dementia, and their caregivers have, that there is, and I really think it's safe to say, there is no place they can go to become rejuvenated, to totally relax. Even with a caregiver at home, you're on guard most of the time, you're on edge most of the time. And so what I hope to give you in the next 10 minutes is a better idea of such a place where the caregiver is more important than the person living with dementia, but both can become rejuvenated, can find solace in a garden. Just for a really interesting fact is in last year, 7 million people in the United States were diagnosed with dementia. 80% of people with dementia live at home. And the average number of caregivers for people living with dementia, forms of Alzheimer's, is anywhere between 2 and 6. And so just multiplying by 2 caregivers per person, we come up with about 16, almost 17 million people who are dealing with this loss of memory, dealing with the ability to care for others who have it and for the caregiver. And there are only 4 public memory gardens that I've been able to find in the United States. The very first one is close by in Portland. And I know that Kurt put a bibliography with each of you at your seats there. And on it is, there's a 5-minute video on the Portland Memory Garden, and it does a better job than I'm about to do to help you understand the garden. As for the team that we've pulled together to work with this, first, I just want to say, the Parks and Recreation staff has been tremendous help. Karen Kiesling and the ad hoc committee, tremendous help. And so what I bring to it is that I've been dealing with design for physically disabled people since 1975, and for aging in place, really since the turn of the century. We were looking at aging in place, successful aging. More recently, I've become involved with aspects of dementia, Alzheimer's, as I became a member of the Governor's Council on Aging and the more regional aging and long-term care of Eastern Washington. And I became a member of this, but I had no understanding of what I could bring to the table. And what I realized after about 6 months or a year is that very few people understand the impact of the environment on both the caregiver and the person with dementia. And so this is what I've been trying to do, and I'm really happy to say that even at the state level, I was reading something a couple of months ago, and I'm going, damn, this sounds familiar. And all of a sudden I realized it was my language that they'd adopted for a part of the policy they were developing. My cohort, Debbie Dodds, is a dementia specialist. She's a gerontologist. She teaches in the School of Nursing in Boston and lives in Spokane. We're both teaching each other as we go along, and it's really a tremendous help. The idea of a memory garden is and I was glad to hear the word public used. There are, like I say, only 4 public memory gardens in the country, whereas Spokane has about a dozen memory gardens as part of memory care facilities. They're not public, and so they're not accessible to the 80% of the folks who are living at home. A memory garden is not a memorial garden. If you Google memory garden, most likely the top 10 or 12 examples are going to be memorial gardens, memorializing the loss of people's lives, memorializing their lives and what they brought to the community. A memory garden deals with the loss of memory in people who are still alive and searching for a better life in many respects. Public memory garden. So I want to move, in a sense, my part here, and you're giving me the opportunity, the Pullman group is giving me the opportunity to almost develop a pilot project. Word is, there's already people across the state that know that this is going on in Pullman, and I've been asked, and Debbie and I are going to make a presentation to the Snohomish County Council on Aging and their thoughts on bringing a memory garden here. So, what we're doing here is going to, I think, benefit many places across the state. What makes a memory garden special of any other kind of garden is that there's maybe 4 really major factors. One, once you're inside, you're inside. It is fenced, and I'm going to show you some examples before you go crazy going, oh my God, we're fencing people in, of what has been done across the country and what can be done. There are no T-intersections in the walkway, and there's no dead ends in the walkway. The closest example to what could be considered a memory garden is the healing garden at Sacred Heart Hospital in Spokane. It's right across the street from Emergency if you ever go up there. There is a dead-end walkway. There is a location also where the caregiver loses sight of the person with dementia. And we're going to run at least 4, if not 5 or 6 focus groups with caregivers, with people who work with people with dementia, bringing activities to them, things like that. And one of the questions I know we're going to be looking for their response to is it really that critical that there is no place you might lose sight of the person you're caring for? So they can be seen where they are almost anywhere in the garden. The garden it's basically got a child-proof lock on it, so it takes a little maneuvering to get it open. And I'll show you some examples in just a minute of the kinds of enclosures that don't make it look like a cage of any sort. This is the gateway to the healing garden at Sacred Heart Hospital. This is the Portland Memory Garden. There are benches. They're higher than most. They have armrests. They are the backrests. So they're designed for people who are typically, in many respects, their physical abilities of over 65 years old. In Portland Memory Garden. And the Portland Memory Garden is only a 1/4 acre in size. And that's the size we'll be shooting for here in Lawson Gardens. You can see in the plan view here of 3 memory gardens that, again, the circular nature. One of the behavioral characteristics of people living with dementia is a need to wander. And so, we've seen in the news many times, about somebody's missing, somebody who's in their 70s or 80s is missing. And so the need to wander is picked up as part of the design of the garden. And like I said, there's no dead ends and no T intersections to cause confusion. The idea of fencing and gates, this is a piece of ironwork done by Ken Spearing, an artist in Spokane. And it's in the gateway. I can't remember if, it's in the fencing that was part of the enclosure. And so the vegetation, the fence itself, all begin to work and merge together. Even little bridge over the stream there has got the floral network and the ironwork. This is the Portland Memory Garden, and I want to include it because the fencing in the full foliage of the year almost disappears. The other aspect that helps it disappear is that there's vegetation on both sides of it. So it doesn't, it appears that the garden continues on outward. Possible ways of creating walls, of again, to hide the fact that you're contained in something. We are thinking of a potential for a vegetative wall as part of the garden and potentially mixing it with a water feature. And I've already talked with a water feature specialist, and it is doable, but it's going to come down to care, maintenance, and cost. It's a 4-story wall with, I think this is in Seattle, I can't remember. This I found really interesting, and this is one of the 4 public memory gardens. It's the Will Rogers Memory Garden in Oklahoma City, and it's mostly architectural rather than garden-like and vegetated. So, what it does is it reduces the amount of maintenance that'll be required by the park staff. The other idea is instead of trees creating shade, you've got canopy over the top. I wrote them last week asking if that canvas work has benefit or if it's problematic. I haven't heard back from them yet. This is the eye-level view of the same thing. The idea with somebody with dementia is that they become fixated on something. There was a slide earlier, I think, with Debbie's mom, Hazel, and she's holding a sprig of lilac by her nose, and she's just totally involved with that sprig. And so the idea of a smell me garden, and then a touch me garden, and sound, and things of that nature are going to have to be played with carefully in the sense that you don't want too much coming into the senses, but you do want it there because it does bring back memories in the garden. What I mean by same sense, different features is you don't want a pool of water like you find in the healing garden at Sacred Heart Hospital, because you'll find the person you're caring for probably sitting in it, walking through it, splashing in it, scaring the ducks. And so the idea of trickling water from a small feature is one possibility. The other thing is there's other possibilities, and that is wind chimes, different materials for wind chimes, quaking aspen, things of that nature. I don't know if you've ever seen this up at Grand Coulee, but these wind sculptures here were made by the citizens in Grand Coulee, and they're in the garden there. The possibility of using snow and ice and water during the winter, again, water is probably going to be a little problematic. Just quickly, this is a generic garden design, and so the possibility is you arrive at it and there might be some stones piled up that you can climb into this sand garden, and you can actually get involved in piling the stones. Let's see if I can pile mine higher than yours, so forth and so on. The use of potentially wave petunias, because of the aromatic nature of it, might be part of the arrival sequence. Dealing with the 5 senses as you go around the park. Again, the water feature. I'm thinking at this point a water wall of some sort at the back with an open area below it, as you'll see in a second. For performance and bringing in, string quartets, maybe some light jazz, things of that nature. Sitting area, variety of sitting, chairs, raised planting walls, and enjoy a performance. Again, the 5 senses being dealt with in different parts. Shade, very definitely, over parts of the garden. Activities. We've been working with Maud's Garden in Seattle. It's about 800 square feet, and it's part of the UW memory care facility there. And they have all tremendous activities where people actually plant things and they take them home, or they can plant them and they bring them into the garden. Okay, good. movement. So the location in Lawson Gardens, you can see the parking lot to the, I believe it's the north, and the walkway that comes down the side. Is the walkway's going to have to be repaired or refurbished. It's not safe really right now for wheelchairs and for people with instability. The grade is not greater than what ADA requires for people in wheelchairs, so we're really fortunate there. But down near the bottom where the birch tree is, and this circled area, is the general area that the garden will be in. The shape and form it'll take, I have no idea at this point, really haven't worked on that. But I have talked with the horticulturalists about, making sure we stay out of the root system of the beech tree. That's going to become sacrosanct. And so this is down at the corner looking into the garden, and I think the reflective pool down below. And so this is where it will be. And the people are already asking, will we be able to see the birch tree from in the garden? Well, that's one of the criteria we'll definitely look for. I won't go through this here. I've taken enough of your time already. And so I appreciate it, and I thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Bob. With that, any questions? Councilmember Weller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob, this is great. I know, having known quite a few people on there and been an elder care specialist myself, this is very much needed. I did have some questions regarding the enclosures. I know with a lot of those metal enclosures, the edges can get very sharp. So is there some thought, because skin can get thin as you age, and if you...
Well, it would definitely be something to consider as we go forward. As you're talking, I'm thinking of the Portland Memory Garden. And the interesting thing is that in most instances, the vegetation keeps you away from it. And so, you don't get that opportunity. The other thing is, out of England and Scotland, is they've actually had people climb over some of the fences, So again, that's part of the design. And I've already started playing games with integrating some fencing or some wrought iron work with a brick wall. And so there's open, close, and a rhythm that goes around the edge. But definitely a big factor.
I appreciate that, and as you talked about England and Scotland, it brought me back to wandering the hedge mazes and just how meditative that was to go through all of those, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of this.
I just want to add quickly, so people really realize this. In studies around the country, about 23 to 25% of the caregivers pass away before the person they're caring for, because of the pressure of dealing with caring for the person. I was fortunate, and I really mean I was fortunate, to look after my mom for 4 years. Debbie looked after her mom for 10 years. And I was supposed to be a specialist in aging when I was doing it, and she taught me something new every day. So,
I appreciate that. Yeah, it definitely can take a toll, but very rewarding. I did have a question. I really liked what you were saying about the green walls, and I know something that I've thought about often is it was popular many years ago, eco-graffiti.
What is that again?
Eco-graffiti.
Oh, yeah.
Utilizing moss so it's less water. I know you're talking about water feature, but less water, utilizing moss and seeds in the walls. So I like where your thoughts. I just wanted to share. I appreciate that.
Well, again, things of that nature. And one of the team members, Jenna, who was a student of mine here at WSU in landscape architecture, now has an international reputation on designing play facilities for kids with autism. Now, the interesting thing is they're almost the same criteria, the kids and the adults. The interesting thing that she brings to it is, and she blew me away when I sat through one of her presentations, and it was that you can throw a material at her that's used in playgrounds, and she'll tell you the chemical structure of it and what is not good and what is potentially contributing to Parkinson's disease or adding to the aspect of autism. So I think we've got that base pretty well covered, really, at this point.
I I really appreciate it. I did have one last, and have you thought about video cameras if people, wander off, the gate's not locked, so on and so forth? Or,
no, I haven't
okay.
at this point. The Portland folks are fantastic. They're willing to sit down and answer any questions I have. And I did ask about, vandalism and things of that nature. They have had minimal over a 25-year period. It was built in 2000, 2001. So.
Great. Councilmember Fajarin?
Thank you, Bob, and the committee for bringing this amazing project forward. I'm going to be so proud to say that Pullman is one of 5 public memory gardens in the United States, and so I think that'll be really awesome. Quick question, just so we can let communicate to the public how to stay involved or stay up to date with this project. I'm sure we have a lot of community members know. Is there going to be like a newsletter, or how can the public stay on top of what's going on?
We've already started making a spreadsheet with people's names and email addresses for the express purpose that they have asked that question. How can I know what's going to continue to happen? Things of that nature. Working with several of the folks now, we're also talking about the potential of feedback from focus groups and maybe a more open across the community kind of question that goes out to them.
Great. Add me to that list if you can. Thank you.
Councilmember Wright?
Thank you so much. It was an absolutely beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
I appreciate the thought and the work that went into that. Absolutely lovely. The questions that I have, though, may be directed more at Kurt than at you. And one is, and actually, Dr. Scarfo, you mentioned it, the cost involved with the ongoing maintenance of the garden. Is that actually been incorporated as part of the gift, or are we making other budgetary plans to take care of that cost? Because it is obviously going to be an increased cost.
I would say probably to be determined a little bit. I know Bob is going to be working pretty closely with Nina Ashmead, our horticulturist at Lawson Gardens, in the concept and going forward, and she's going to certainly have a say in how things go, just knowing the maintenance piece of it. But it is something that we'll need to address, as it is going to take, whether it's extra seasonal staff, maybe reallocate a seasonal staff to help out there, or some of our other full-time staff, might have to pick up some of the mowing and stuff. I think it's certainly doable. I think it's a rewarding project that we'll make it work.
Okay, awesome.
If I could just
Sure,
quickly,
of course.
2 possibilities. One would be like the Portland Memory Garden has the Friends of the Portland Memory Garden.
Okay.
And they do a lot of the ongoing maintenance for it throughout the year. So that's a possibility. The other possibility is, and I started to look into it, I don't have any figures, but what would make for an endowment that would cover the salary of a person dedicated to the garden, year-round.
Right. Great, thank you. And then the other question, and this may be a Kurt question as well, will this area be available to other groups as well? I know we're talking about it being a public garden, but if someone wanted to use that area, kind of like they use the other parts of the garden for private events or whatever, is that a possibility or no?
I think to be discussed. I think probably a conversation with Bob, the ad hoc group, certainly feedback from, say, the Portland Memory Garden or some other places, how that has worked. I know Bob mentioned, maybe a symphony, maybe having some small events in that space. So I think it's more to be learned on our part in, is it appropriate to use that space as a reserve, gathering.
Right, okay. As lovely as it's going to be, that just, in my mind, presents itself as a beautiful setting. So thank you both.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you for everyone who came out that's supporting this also in the committee that's working hard to bring this forward. Thank you. Our next presentation is from the Downtown Pullman Association. With that, we have the association, their director, Bobby Ryder. And Bobby, we'll put the 2-minute timer. No, it's a joke.
2 minutes.
You know, it's a joke.
Thanks, Francis.
We'll get you there. There we go. Great.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thank you, Francis, for that introduction. Y'all know me, Bobby Ryder with Downtown Pullman Association, Executive Director. I am proud to be here today to talk about all the things we've accomplished through the Downtown Pullman Association. I feel that it's made great strides, and I'm going to cover some of that and cover some of the things that of where we were before. I know you all have seen this image before, but just a reminder for those that maybe haven't, is that the Main Street approach is a 4 tenets, right? 4-point approach. You have promotions, which is going to promote your downtown and attract visitors. Economic vitality, supporting existing businesses to grow. This is like the data collection aspect of the whole story of your downtown. Design is leading placemaking, project, historic preservation, standards or guidelines for buildings and revitalization projects. And then the 4th is outreach through recruitment of volunteers and fundraising for the Downtown Pullman Association. So these are 4 committees, and we definitely want more volunteers participating in these committees. They're fun and they're interesting, and if you have anyone out there is interested in any of these points, please do come and see us. On promotions, the chair is Chelsea Whitney, and she does a great job. Economic vitality is Garth Mader, also brings a tremendous amount of knowledge and expertise. Design is Gigi Shurska, and she's doing a tremendous job. And then outreach is Judy Cole, our president. And she said that she's getting ready to move on to other projects, so if anybody's interested in outreach, be sure and see me. I want to say one thing before we go much further in this. We've gotten to where we are not because of me, but because of other leaders that came before me, and the involvement with the city. Also, our previous executive directors did a tremendous amount of work, and I want to acknowledge Holly Greystone and Mallory Nash for the work that they did. They did a lot of good things. The downtown is the heart of Pullman. That's indisputable. It's the middle of all our hills. So why is this important to all of us, and why now? Well, the City Council and the Pullman community have made downtown a priority. And this is evidenced by what you've done with Project Downtown. We have new sidewalks, we have new landscaping, new infrastructure, new streets, and it looks beautiful, and it's now a new opportunity for us. I also am happy to announce that Downtown Pullman is now a fully designated Main Street community, and this is a huge accomplishment. Pullman, because we are a designated Main Street community, Pullman has access to the state business and occupation tax incentives, which is an important fundraising effort for us. And a sustainable funding model is a key criteria to remaining a designated Main Street community. So it's kind of a cyclical thing. Our mission is to support downtown so that the entire Pullman community grows. Your support allows Pullman to focus on delivering on our mission, including direct assistance to downtown businesses, coordinate promotions, track data, and attract new entrepreneurs. So it is through this program that you can watch your tax dollars support the vibrant heart of downtown Pullman instead of going to Olympia by taking advantage of the B&O tax program. So I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but first I want to look at let's look at the numbers. So the Downtown Pullman Association is about 4 years old. It started in 2021. The amount of money raised through grants and donations is approximately $500,000, a little bit more actually. We've had grants from the city of Pullman, from Washington State University, the Main Street program, the federal government through the USDA, civic groups, private individual donors, and that amount, $500,000, does not include the B&O tax program. We only recently have achieved that. The number of volunteer hours is 675, roughly, to 700 hours annually, and DPA is always in need of more volunteers. As I mentioned, did I mention, outreach coordinator position is coming available. The number of physical improvements made downtown, there are 11 building exterior improvements, and the number of DPA promotions that we have put on are 14, as well as 7 collaborations. So we're doing almost 2 promotions a month. In terms of new businesses, we do have 13 vacancies out of 80 businesses, or approximately a 16% vacancy rate. So DPA is working directly with governmental agencies, as I mentioned, City of Pullman, Whitman County Commissioners, and the Port of Whitman. All are involved in economic development. We work with the Pullman Chamber of Commerce very closely, and WSU Center for Civic Engagement, the Carson College of Business Data Analytics Program, WSU Sports Management Program, WSU Athletics, Pullman Civic Trust, and Cougs First is one of our recent partnerships. We are reaching out to the Cougar Nation and asking them to please take advantage of the B&O tax credit program. Make your donations work for Pullman and work for you with a 75% tax deduction on your B&O taxes the following year. You can watch your taxes at work right here in Pullman. So to explain how it works, if you imagine your tax dollars could support the vibrant heart of downtown Pullman instead of going to Olympia, that happens through the Main Street program. And here's how it works. Roughly, for every $100 you contribute to the Downtown Pullman Association, you receive a $75 tax credit for your B&O taxes in the following year, and is a direct way to invest in your downtown. So let's look at it at probably a more likely contribution. If you decide that you would like to donate $1,000 and contribute to the Downtown Pullman Association in 2025, in 2026, you will receive a $750 tax credit on your B&O taxes. So that is $250 out of pocket, but you have given to the downtown revitalization effort $1,000. So it's a pretty good deal, and certainly can be a very effective way to donate to your community. So why act now? This year, businesses can contribute up to $33,333, which means more tax credits are available for you. However, this larger cap isn't guaranteed every year. So it's crucial to take advantage of this as soon as possible, and preferably by no later than October 31st. So where do your tax dollars go? Your dollars help fund projects, events, operations, and keep our downtown moving forward and growing. And here's some of the things that we have been doing and that we are working on. The most recent is our market on Main. We have a farmer's market that is starting up. This was our first day. We had six pop-ups out there, 6 booths, and we had approximately 300 people that in our foot traffic count. We now are up to, I believe the last one was 12 booths, and the next week we have the farmers are finally starting to show up. The way these things kind of get going is generally the crafter people move in, or food booths move in, and they start developing the foot traffic, and then the farmers wait and see what kind of foot traffic you're going to have, and then they show up. So We're excited that we will have farmers this next weekend and hope that you will join us. The T-Mobile grant was a very significant grant because it allowed us to buy tables, chairs, and umbrellas for the downtown. This was a $50,000 hometown grant from T-Mobile, and plus another $5,000, a Vista Foundation, which allowed GPA to add movable furniture to all downtown plazas, thus by enhancing public spaces. The grant also funded decorative lighting for new street poles and colorful promotional banners to brighten the area. And we have Megan Farian up here showing her beautiful banners, and they really are a stunner, and we're very appreciative, Megan, of your work. So we had a beautiful buildings campaign. This was a collaboration with Pullman Civic Trust, who appealed to their membership to donate to this campaign. This is we've had four different applications that we have funded. They are funded, we didn't pay for the whole thing. They are a $500 micro grant that we offer up to $500 for a business to help them, to incentivize them to begin to do the restoration that's needed. So the building on the left is before, and the same building on the right is after, and you can see the significant improvements just with paint and cleaning up the facade. I want to shout out to the Mimosa Building. That was not a recipient of our Beautiful Buildings campaign. However, it created a lot of interest and a lot of excitement in our downtown, and I want to thank the business owners for taking it upon themselves to paint the outside and upgrade that situation. It made a big difference. So we have some nominations that we will be doing to the Main Street program. This one is a brick and mortar nomination, and it is the telephone exchange building. It's the Interstate Telephone Company building was constructed in 1938, and it was used to house Pullman's first automatic telephone exchange system. It has had two additional owners, one of them being the Plateau Center, who has refurbished the building to a modern use space in which, while maintaining and celebrating the original historic character. And you can see that the original doors have been left, the hardware on the windows is still in place and intact, but yet they've converted this building that's kind of nondescript at first, but when you realize the impact that it had to our farming community was quite tremendous. It connected them to the world. It also houses 25 employees that work for the Plateau Cultural Resource Management firm. So there's 25 archaeologists and researchers in that group. And it also represents $100,000 investment plus, a little more than that, in our downtown. It's owned by David and Jenny Harder, and they really have done a spectacular job. The other nomination will be the Legacy on Main nomination. This is for Neil's Flowers and Gifts, which is quite a remarkable history. It has been around since 1910 and has served the students and residents of Pullman. It's now celebrating 115 years in business. The Flower and Gift Shop is the longest running business in Pullman, and it is located on our main street. And here we have Mitch, that black and white photo where he was purchasing the gift shop, and now you have him down here in the lower left with his son Holden, his grandson Holden, who works in the ice cream shop next door. And it really is the place where if you want to know what's going on in town, Neil's Flowers and Gifts usually knows. Some of the other events that we've had, we've participated in the Three Fork River and Arts Festival. I know Mallory was in charge of this. However, I felt I could put that up because I've also participated in it a few years. And The duck race became taken over by DPA as a little fundraiser, and I had to share that with Francis. So the Downtown Vibes and Lentil Fest Friday is coming up. This was last year. This will kick off the Lentil Festival. Is DPA hosted, and this event brought over 2,000 visitors to downtown, and the celebration boosted foot traffic and fostered community collaboration among 28 participating businesses. And here's some more fun. There was dancing, there was music, there were things to buy, and we had our mascots. Another big event that the DPA puts forth is Trick or Treat. It seems to keep growing in this year. I want to mention that Chelsea Whitney does a great job with Trick or Treat and organizing this, and she also does a really great job with her data because she kind of puts it into these enjoyable cartoons. So we had over 600 visitors over 3 hours. 100 pounds of candy, 28 volunteers, 41 participating businesses, and 5 sponsors. And then we had the International Women-Owned Business Day, and that was where we put together pink bouquets of balloons and hung them in the front door at the front of women-owned businesses. There are 32 women-owned businesses in downtown Pullman, and that's pretty significant out of about 80 businesses. Most of those businesses, I would say it was really out of about 70 businesses, because some of those are maybe not as enticing just because they're legal businesses and things like that. So we don't know who owned those exactly. But the Art Walk was the next thing that we did this spring. It was in May, and we partnered with the Greystone Galleries and the Pullman Chamber of Commerce. DPA hosted the Art Walk featuring 18 collaborations between local artists and downtown businesses, and the event boosted foot traffic and community engagement, included the public unveiling of the 2025 Lentil Festival poster done by Colin Scott, who is seen there with his paintings and the poster beside. He is a Pullman High graduate. Pub crawls are pretty popular in Pullman. After Pullman was near the end, at least they opened up the sidewalks for us to be able to go easily downtown, and I think we were on the streets by then. We decided to hold a celebration, and one of the celebrations was called the Cement Mixer, which was kind of a fun name. And it was very successful in terms of 10 businesses, each creating themed cocktails and drawing 125 participants and generating over $3,000 in support for local businesses and their staff. Another one that we did was the Crimson and Gray Pub Crawl this spring. The merch that year for this one was a trucker hat, and who wouldn't want a trucker hat? It created a lot of enthusiasm, and again, it was, this one generated $2,000 that was directed to participating businesses. We also enjoy community collaborations. This spring, there was the Blooms and Tunes Festival, and it was about decorating umbrellas. Well, we have umbrellas. That is one thing we have a lot of, is umbrellas. So we decorated our umbrellas that were in the plazas with all kinds of flowers. It was very cool. To the right is a lovely thank you note from Mela, the owners of Mela, that says, "Thank you for your trust, you beautiful people of Pullman." And they go on to talk about how much they appreciate the downtown and what we have done to help them celebrate their culture and who they are. So the DPA Promotions Committee awarded $250 in micro grants. It's not a lot, but every little bit like that really does help. And they were able to host what is their New Year celebration, and just supported a lot of the Bangladeshi and the Nepali and other communities that we have here in Pullman. Pullman Civic Trust created a community wall. That was a series of shelves that first we had a pumpkin wall, which had some amazingly, fantastically carved pumpkins. We offered 1 credit of community service for each pumpkin that was carved and delivered to us. And we put them on the shelves and lit them up that were in front of the train caboose. We named this the community wall, and we also used it as a decoration for the holidays. So a little flashback to 2023. This is what the Thomas Hammer building looked like before we got a hold of it. And we kind of forget the significance of what these community projects can do. In the middle, or basically the team that painted that project raised the money. We worked with the Pullman Arts Foundation, Downtown Pullman Association, and actually Pullman Civic Trust was involved in that also. The Design Committee and Pullman Arts Foundation commissioned a mural by artist Tori Shao. Here's the final result. And blending the building with the river, it features the Palouse wildlife, invites kids to find hidden animals, and the DPA raised first for this one, we raised over $30,000, and then we raised an additional $10,000 to fund the painting of the Mimosa building on the backside. And I will say that the river this spring actually did go up and touch the river on the mural. It was all one seamless event. And then the USDA Rural Business Development Grant was huge. It was, there were 2 sites, Site A and Site B. On the upper right is what the Triangle Alley is what we called it, looked like ahead of time. And then thanks to Motley & Motley, they came in a very, very tight space and worked through putting in a storm system because all of those roofs drained onto the ground. They didn't go into the storm drain. So it has really helped those buildings that periodically were experiencing almost every year some form of flooding. So $74,000 grant, $103,000 total project costs, which that means we had that many contributions to upgrade and activate these 2 sites. And this is what it looks like today. We've put decorative lighting, and there are actually events that are held back in the alley. The other site, Site B, was the parking lot off of Paradise Street behind Bruce Books. And this has 6 additional shade trees, more shrubs, and more flowers, and an irrigation system that it never had before. So I want to close tonight with a call to action. Please support local. When the tide comes in, all ships rise. Let the power of the center radiate and create a Pullman-centric regional success. Allow that ripple effect to allow all businesses to rise. Support Main Street by every coffee, every bookstore visit, every event attended. This helps build the Pullman that we all believe in. Be part of the story. Pullman's next chapter is being written today. The moment really is now. Let's make Pullman the model for small town revitalization. And I want to thank you all for all of the work that you've done, for showing up to our events, and for supporting Downtown Pullman Association and our community and all the work that you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. With that, any questions or comments? Councilmember Weller?
Thanks, Bobby. I know you gave a lot of credit to people who came before you, but I will say that it feels like there's additional energy with you.
Thank you.
Coming in. So I appreciate you giving kudos for people past, but I also want to recognize the efforts, tireless efforts that you've done. I did have 2 questions. One is, I know a while ago I had met with Whitney in the Colfax downtown. And I know she was interested in possible collaboration with Pullman at
Oh, yeah.
some time. And I wasn't sure if you had had conversations. I could see, even though I know we're focused on Pullman, and that's very important, there was some discussion when I was there, you know, cooperation type of thing. And, you
Yeah,
know,
no,
that,
we would very much like to do, we would like to have the Main Street trainings, one of the trainings here and have two sister cities.
that's cool.
Would you? So, well, Judy's going to talk about this one.
Okay.
Hi. Yeah. So one of the things we did when we went to a training for the Main Street program itself with all the, a few board members, some presidents, and many executive directors is they have a sister city between Roslyn and Cle Elum. And they want to establish that with us. And so one of the first things we can do before we can maybe get a bigger conference and more economic development through that program is just do one of the quarterly trainings. So we've already put in our name, but eventually you can get a bigger conference like the Places Conference, which last year was in Walla Walla and this year's going to be in Gig Harbor. So there's more ways. I mean, what you saw a lot of in this presentation was the visual things of design and the grants and different things, and that is all about the Main Street approach, building the infrastructure so you can come, and the events to activate that space. But the ultimate job of this organization is economic development. We need to activate this downtown, we need to sustain and grow the businesses that are there, and we need to attract new businesses. And the way we are going to do that is regionally. I think becoming a better partner with Colfax and collaborating more with Moscow. We have to embrace this whole region because, you know, rising tides do lift all boats, and they have a different vibe in Colfax, they have a different vibe in Moscow, and it's like something for everybody. You can find it here, and I think that's the big thing I think we need to do more of. And the other thing I wanted to say is just, I do agree with you, there's been people that have come and gone, but there's also been some people, like Tom Handy, our first president, that have been instrumental. Marie from the chamber for years, everybody from WSU, Francis was one of our first major chairs of the Economic Vitality Committee. So there's been a lot of people. Megan helped write some of those awards that we got, submissions. So everybody's helped us grow. So it's not just one person that's pulled us over the finish line here. It's been a lot of people who wanted to dig in for Pullman and help us bring some of that tax money, or at least have the opportunity for people to direct it back here. So we do need some more volunteers, though. So some of us have been kind of rowing the boat for a long time, and we would like to spread the opportunity to help our downtown to more people. So that's all I wanted to say. But yeah, we're looking for an outreach chair, someone that can do recruiting and development work. So we're taking applications.
Great. I appreciate you saying that, Judy, because I totally agree that this is a regional, I mean, we're a powerhouse if we look beyond just, you know, the city borders, and I will say also Palouse. The other thing I'd like to ask, I visited a business up at Gladish, and I know many of them are extremely scared, I think is the best way to put it, and looking on how they might be able to locate somewhere in the downtown core, and I wasn't sure if there had been conversations around that.
I guess the short answer on that is I read it in the newspaper, like you. However, I don't believe it was a surprise. It has been struggling. There is a lot of deferred maintenance with that facility. However, it really is a beautiful building. Looking from the outside, it's a stunner. I think if we could get the kind of the fencing down from around it, it really could become a diamond in the rough. And we do need there's the space there for a performing arts center. And I know someone who has dance performances all the time at nationals, and she would probably really love to have a performing center there. So no, we did not have a conversation with them. However, we do work with them from time to time. So I think it was a management decision.
Great, and I do want to recognize also, I see almost every day new businesses coming. Flower, I'm going to check that one out as soon as it has open door, I think Thursday. they'll be opening up. It's a bakery shop down there, by Greystone. Flour over by, Greystone Galleries. Flour Power, the bakery.
So are you frequenting that now?
Well, I always like going down there, but, and of course, bakery. I mean, that's why I go to the gym. I eat too much bakery stuff. But I will say, like I said, I see almost a new business coming in almost weekly, and,
There are new things that are happening.
Yeah.
And I do believe that, the reason that we got involved just peripherally, but we're on the committee, we, meaning the DPA, with the farmers market is because they're a business just like everybody else. They're just trying to find their footing. And if we can help them do that, then we're in. We're there to help them out. We haven't given them money. We have given them support. We've given them advice. We've lent them a pop-up tent or two, and things like that can just get things going.
Councilmember Guido.
Thank you, Bobby, and to Judy for your ongoing dedication to this. And I know how hard both of you guys work on this, and I know that you guys are definitely the ones rowing the boat, thinking about it day in and day out, and that's what we need. I think you're coming up with some innovative programs. We took advantage of that as the Whitman Recovery Community Center. You did show the building. And I want to shout out to Dale Shell, who is the owner of that building, who did take advantage of that kind of incentive that you provided to then turn around and upgrade his building along with the co-owners of that building. So if we can do more of those types of things to reach out to owners of those buildings that may not be located here and may, for whatever reason, is an investment and it's not on their radar because they're not here every day, the more we can try and incentivize them to think about their properties and the investment in Pullman and just the difference a coat of paint can make. And we saw it with Mimosa too, right? So I think we have to implore our owners of buildings to come to the table, step up. This is your chance.
Mm-hmm. I just want to add to that, a lot of that happens by getting into the conversation with the owners and finding out really what their concerns are and what they care about. So it's been an interesting process on some of those buildings for sure. Judy?
I also want to say part of it has to do with, I think, us encouraging more matching, because I think when people just expect a handout, that gets pretty old after a while. I mean, I think other businesses are, why did that person get it and not me? Or I think it's more a matter of let's stimulate private investment by giving a start. I think especially with the changes that are happening in public funding, a lot of those sources are drying up. We have to get more creative. We have to attract private investment. And I think just getting somebody over the hump, giving them a start, making it easier to get the permit, to get the thing, to get going in here is how you can help us. Like, let's work to bring down the barriers. As a wonderful business person said, let's get to yes faster and easier. And so that's on you to help us do that. So, because there's a lot of times that's pretty hard to do, as you know, in here sometimes. So that's, I think, we can do. We can do match, we can have the conversations, but we also want them to come to actually do a project. It has to be a little bit easier. That's my personal opinion.
Great. Thank you for both of your work and all of your organization and the impact that you're making on your community.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is the consent agenda. The items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted by a single motion of City Council without separate discussion. With that, I entertain a motion to read the consent agenda by title only.
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
With that, if you could read the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. First item is a motion to dispense with the reading of the meeting minutes of July 8, 2025, and approve them as submitted. Item 2, a motion to approve the transfer of sales tax revenue to CIP Reserve Fund for 2025 Q2 in the amount of $321,141. Item 3, a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks number 2011-31217 through 2011-31374, totaling $3,342,475.04. Item 4, a motion to approve disbursements for electronic transfers number 362 through 384, totaling $1,516,339.21. Item 5, a motion authorizing the acceptance of federal AIP grant funds for Pullman Moscow Regional Airport projects. And finally, item 6, a motion to authorize the remaining originally requested amount of the lodging tax grant to Palouse Summer Series 2025 for an amount up to $4,666.33.
Thank you, Thad. Do any council members desire to have any items removed from the consent agenda to be discussed separately? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second. With that, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. Next up for regular agenda, and Jeff Albrecht, related to labor contracts.
Yeah, before you is a motion to approve the labor contract with the ATU, our transit union, for the 3-year period of 2025 through 2027. I want to make one note. I just realized, actually, thanks to Sean Wells, realized sections 4.02 and 4.03, the text and the numerical don't agree. The text says 2% as the floor, and the numeric says 2.5. 2.5 is what's in the summary. 2.5 is the correct number. We'll make sure and get that corrected before final signatures. So that was just only got partially updated. I apologize for that. But other than that, I would answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Not, I'd entertain a motion for approving the labor contract.
A motion to approve amalgamated Transit Union Local 1015 labor contract for years 2025 to 2027.
A second? Second. With that, any discussion? Yes, Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Just a comment. I'm incredibly proud of the good faith work on both sides in order to make this contract happen. Especially proud of across the board 5% wage increase for 2025. Investing on our transit employees leads to better services, and I'm proud to approve this contract.
Any other discussion? Not. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. On to item 2, and Jeff, you're still up.
So related to this, item 2 is ordinance 2513, which is an ordinance to amend the previously adopted budget for 2025 and 2026. So basically what this does is amend the budget to reflect the additional expenses related to the contract.
And with that, any discussion? Any questions, first of all, of Jeff? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for approving the ordinance.
Second.
That, if you could read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 25-13, an ordinance amending ordinance number 24-14, adopted November 14, 2024, and entitled An Ordinance Adopting a Biennial Budget for the City of Pullman for the Biennium 2025 through 2026, relating to the 2025 to 2027 ATU Local 1015 Union Collective Bargaining Agreement.
With that, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, motion passes. Thank you, Jeff. Next up, under new business, we have 2 discussion items. And the first one is before you, you have, first of all, Tremaine Gaither, who was council member for Ward 1, submitted his resignation effective last week, so July 15th. And then you also have with that the RCW related to filling a nonpartisan vacancy. Historically, what the city has done is when there's a vacancy is we would then open up a time period for accepting applications, and then there would be a review of applications. Because of the timing of this, there's some things that I would like the council to consider in this process. The first one is within the RCW, you'll notice that if the council has 90 days in order to fill the position. If the council doesn't fill it within 90 days, then the county commissioners have 90 days to fill it, and if they don't fill it within those 90 plus 90, 180 days, then it moves to the governor. If we look at this position, there currently is an election going on for this position that is a short and a long term. The long term starts January 1. The short term, because Tremaine was appointed, was not elected, his short term would actually start upon the certification of the election, which would probably be around November 25th. So that short term is that certification date around November 25th through December 31st, and then the regular term, the long term for the 4 years. The challenge that we have, and this is just what I'm bringing to the council, is as a council, if you look under the RCW, it's not appropriate for the council to endorse anyone who's running for an election. And so if you were to, in the process, select someone who is running for election, that could be seen as an endorsement, which would be improper for you for a council to do. It creates this awkward situation right now with it. So my recommendation to the council, and this is really this discussion for the council, is that we don't fill the seat, we leave it vacant and let the seat be filled once the election happens and the individual that is certified then takes office then at that November time period. If you choose to want to go forward with filling the position, then you do run the risk that it would be seen as endorsing a specific candidate. If we look at the 90 days with the current resignation being July 15th, that would actually fall to an October 15th is the timeline that we would need to fill it. If we didn't fill it within the October 15th timeframe, the county commissioners could potentially fill it, but they would have to go through a process of opening it up for people to apply, fill it, and if they did, they may get it filled in time for one council meeting before that person would no longer be on the council and the other one would take office. So, and I'm just kind of giving you that scenario. So my recommendation to the council is that we leave the seat open because there's a current election that's going on at this time. And with that, I open it up to the council for your thoughts in this discussion. Councilmember Guido.
I think with that explanation and with the circumstances of having an election in November, and in light of when Tremaine was actually appointed and the process did take some time and an effort to do that, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to go through that process when we're so close to an election, and particularly when you put it in that light that it would only be in time for one council meeting with the October timeframe that you mentioned. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I would agree with your recommendation.
Other discussion, thoughts? Councilmember Wright?
I would agree as well, and just in the interest of efficiency, would be difficult for any new person not involved in the current election to get up to speed to even make any rational decisions about what might come across. And so I think we are, as a body, the way we sit right now, we're very capable of making reasonable decisions short one person. We just have to be mindful of the quorum requirements. So that would be my 2 cents.
Any others? Got it. So I'm seeing kind of a consensus in this, so Councilmember,
I was just going to add that I thank you for the explanation. I would too be supportive of what has been talked about, especially since 90 days, like you mentioned, is October 13th, which I think is just a week or two before ballots are actually mailed out. So we have a very lively election cycle, a lot of good candidates, and I look forward to serving with who's ever elected in November.
great. Okay, we'll move forward with that. Okay, the next item for discussion, I'm going to move the podium for presentation. So this presentation, this is talking about the Washington State Legislative recap as it relates to the city. And this is, for the council, this is the first start in the process for you to be starting to set the legislative agenda for the 2026 legislature. So the intent is we will be working to get our legislators in to a meeting this fall, and it's best for us to have the agenda, the legislative agenda set, so that when we meet with them, we can be then discussing those issues. So I want to talk about session recap, and then what are some of the bills that have passed or are actually in process that, you know, from a council standpoint, or either something that you're going to see are going to come before you related to potential changes in the code, and then also as it relates to budgetary. The 2025 legislative session, it was a long session, so 105-day session, and the legislature, they operate on a 2-year budget cycle, so you have a long session that really is the budget setting in 2025, and then in 2026 is a shorter 60-day session that really is more focused on some budget adjustments, but not as much on the budget piece. For the 2025 legislative sessions, the Democrat majority, they expanded by 1 seat in each of the House and Senate, and actually put them into a position where they had a supermajority in both of them of over 60%. The overarching theme really was the challenging economic environment. There was a projected $16 billion shortfall over a 4-year period, negative revenue forecasts that were happening, higher interest rates, inflationary pressure, and also federal funding uncertainty. So within this framework, the legislature, they really focused on budget and policy around revenue, housing, and education. And then also with a new governor in place with Governor Ferguson, it was a process, this time was a process for the legislature to really get to know the governor, build those relationships, and understand what was important for him. From AWC side, AWC represents all 281 cities within the state of Washington. These are the 5 AWC priorities that were set this last year as a part of the Legislative Priorities Committee. I do have the opportunity to sit on AWC's Legislative Priority Committee, so I'm able to help guide in that process. And you'll notice the fiscal sustainability, public safety, infrastructure, housing, and behavioral health capacity were the main areas that AWC focused on. For the city, the legislative priorities that you had come up with for the priority areas had to do with the bypass, repurposing of in-town railways, housing affordability, You then had city support areas around policing and the airport, and then community support areas as it related to economic development, health, particularly in the mental and substance abuse, safety as it relates to Highway 26 passing lanes, and then affordable higher education. If we look at budget outcomes that happen as a part of the process, the legislature has 3 budgets. They work from the operating, the transportation, and capital. You can see these are some of the different things that we're focused on. Really, they were dealing with deficits and shortfalls to meet maintenance levels, and this is probably the first legislative session in a long time where they had to deal with the budget shortfalls and dealing with maintenance level issues as opposed to looking at expanding programs. If we look at previous funding concerns where those times hit, had to do with the last Great Recession, McCleary around K-12 funding, and the pandemic revenue concerns that were previously. So this was along that line for that. And it was the first time in a long time that they had to make some hard decisions really around funding and revenue. If we look at what they did as it related to some of the budgets and bills, and this is just for you as a city to be aware of, bills that passed around housing, you have this preemption of on-site parking requirements for cities over 30K. And one of the things you'll see in this is the preemption of the state legislature removing some of the authorities that the city has with flexibility, and the state saying they want to mandate how it is at a state level. And then the second one was providing a process related to lot splitting, which probably doesn't affect us that much. 2 bills that didn't pass, but within the legislative session, all of those bills, as we go into the 2026 legislative session, start where they ended. So it's not like they have to start over again. If they were in a specific committee, they are still in that committee and could move forward from that committee. And so 2 of them within the housing is compliance of emergency shelters and housing ordinances, where there may be a requirement for us at a state level for the state requires certain things related to emergency shelters for cities. And then they didn't, but this is still being discussed of whether or not they want to remove the ability of cities to be able to set public camping ordinances, and whether the state preempts that and handles it at the state level. Around transportation, they passed a 6-cent gas tax. They did create a shared streets designation option, and then they also created an option related to the ability to lease unused highway lands for community purposes. Within the past, what didn't pass was the road usage charge as it relates to transportation, until they figure out the transportation funding through, and it historically is the gas tax. As you have more of the hybrids and the electric, which aren't paying that, that's where they're looking to moving toward a road usage charge. That discussion is going to continue, and really a lot of it has to do with is the road usage charge based on distance traveled, or is it based on time that the car is operating? As we look at from the environment piece, they did pass a Recycling Reform Act related to residential paper and packaging, which could have potential impact on the cost of our recycling program, probably in a positive way for the residents. They standardize color labeling, and they are now requiring PFAS testing within biosolids, and we've been faced with the PFAS piece. One of the bills that's in process that didn't pass but is expected to come back around is the potential of adding environmental justice considerations to SEPA. And so I'm talking about these because these could then affect processes within the city. Under general government, they do now require as it relates to our emergency planning as a city. We need to add in pet sheltering as a part of that process. They have also expanded outdoor alcohol service for libation zones. This is just through the World Cup, so it's a short term, I think just through 2027 is what, but it allows for some flexibilities as it relates to outdoor areas, and you don't necessarily have to have your a beer garden fenced off from everything else, depending on some of the rules and regulations. So you may see some people coming to the city related to that. Two bills that didn't pass but are still being considered. One is the even year election option, so that would give cities the even year election option. So right now, our elections are on odd years, whereas you have the legislative and congressional, the federal elections that happen on the even years. Cities could move to where our election actually happens at the same time. If you did make that, if it was passed and we made that move, then that would actually significantly cut what our election costs are, if you think about the costs that we pay every year as it relates to elections. And then there is consideration going on related to ranked choice voting option that is still considered out there. For land use, they have authorized cities to allow parking across the ends of driveway, which previously was not allowed. So that's something that, as a city, we need to make a decision on whether or not that's something that we implement here in Pullman. Authorized electric security fences to be able to happen but as a city, you could ban or regulate them in ways. So that's something that is something that could come forward as a zoning piece. Within the land use, they're requiring greater flexibility for child care centers within our zoning laws. If you think about if you look at our zoning regulations and our use chart where it says this is permitted or this is, whether it's permitted or not, or whether it requires you for other ways to be able to access, there's going to be changes in the zoning law related to that, along with calculations related to child care occupancy. So there's a bit of focus. The child care issue was on the top, and so they're doing some things around child care. And then you also see this historic landmark designation where the property owners need to consent in most cases in order to be part of that. What didn't pass was requiring cities to allow neighborhood cafes and business in residential areas. This is something that we're already having in place in most situations, so even if it did pass, that probably wouldn't affect us. Under the public safety criminal justice, they did pass some speed limiting technologies for certain drivers. Those are drivers that have been been charged with certain actions. You do now have a councilmanic 0.1% sales tax option as it relates to criminal justice. So that is a new option tool before you, that if you were looking at programs to fund officers, co-responder recruitment, training, things like this, there is a funding opportunity for you if you wanted to go that way. The legislature did shift the cost as it related to our basic law enforcement academy from supporting it 100% to where now as cities we have to cost shift and pay for 25% of that. One of the things that was also talked about just as we're looking at trends that are going on, there was a significant trend as it relates to juvenile arrests, increases from 2022 to 2023, and that type of trend is something that increases cost as it relates to juvenile criminal justice, but then that oftentimes also then moves into adults too. And so an increase that way. So if that is a trend that also is happening in Pullman, that's something to be aware of. The other piece within public safety is this indigent defense caseload. Currently, what's allowed is a caseload of 400 for misdemeanors or 500 for felony. It has been considered, and the state Supreme Court actually entered into this and has created to where over a 10-year process, they want to remove those caseloads from 400 down to 120 or 150 down to 47. What that means is a part of our court costs that you see that come before you, there's going to be an increase in what our court costs are as it relates to the indigent defense caseload. So that's something that from a budgetary, you're going to be seeing that coming forward to the council over the next years. So if we look ahead for 2026, next year is a 60-day session. Historically, they don't focus a lot on the budget, but they're more wrapping up other things. However, if we look at the where their challenge is the budget shortfall was estimating a $16 billion over 40 years, and the June revenue forecast was again down by a combined $700 million for the 2025 through 27 and the 27 through 29 bienniums. So they may have to come back and do cuts when that when that revenue forecast came out, there was actually some discussion of whether or not they were going to come back into special session, and the governor's like, no, I don't want to, but it's on that edge. If there's another downturn that way, it could trigger at this late in this session in the year, probably not, but it would mean that there's going to be some budget and revenue issues that are going to come before the legislature. So the budget challenges, we still have the uncertainty related to the federal government and the fiscal piece that way, and just understand that the bills that were introduced in 2025 revert back to their final status when they come back in 2026. At the next city council meeting is when then I'll actually be bringing back to the council for discussion of what do you want in the 2026 legislative agenda. We'll look at what we had in 2025, so it'll be a discussion, and what it'll look like is we'll have one meeting where we'll do a discussion. We'll have a second meeting where I'll bring drafts based on that discussion for further discussion, and then a third meeting where then we would actually hopefully pass it by then, just in the structure of it. With that, any questions related to updates on the legislative session and things that you can see potentially impacting your work as a city? Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Sure, I'll start. First off, appreciate the review of the legislative session. There's just so much going on, and so it's nice to see exactly what House bills passed and what, as a council member, what applies to us. One of the few things that I were following, and I just would appreciate your input on this in the legislative session, was the conversation around lifting the 1% on the property taxes. Do you feel like the legislature will revert back to that? I heard that they received the most public comment they ever received on that piece of legislation.
They received the most public comment, and what happened is the legislature, if you look through 100% of the session, through the first 95% of the session, it was expected that it was going to pass, allowing for the ability to increase based on CPI inflation rates up to a maximum of 3%. So you couldn't just immediately go to 3%, but it had to be because of what was going on from the inflation side. That was up through about 95%, and then the governor messaged I don't support it, and I would veto it. And that's really what shut that down. From the city side, just as we've had our meetings with AWC's lobbyists, they don't see it coming back unless the governor messages something different. So the governor is the one that shut it down in the way that it shut down. And so everything from our lobbyists within Association of Washington Cities, they're not expecting for it to be even come back in the consideration for 2026. Obviously, there was a lot of work that was done, a lot of groundwork to show, if the state legislature's, raising their revenue so that they can meet things, why doesn't the city have the same opportunity in that way?
I appreciate that insight. And then just one more of a comment. One of the least most disappointing things that I saw in this latest budget was the cut of funds for Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. I think OSPI is going to be funding that program for the next 2 years, but that funding was cut from the legislature. We have hundreds of students, kids, who benefit from that program here locally. That funding provided 50% of the cost of doing that program. So those who are unfamiliar with it, it's a book giving program, 0 to 5 years old. A child receives a book every single month from the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. So that's kind of where my head's at in terms of the conversation next week. I would like to see more activism on restoring that funding and funding for early childhood education.
Councilmember Weller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think one of the things that I found was interesting that you had brought up was about recomping or several back about how long you're in a car versus how far you drive, because I know maybe it's not as much of
the transportation one?
Yes, because maybe it's not as much of an issue for us here in Pullman, but in the rural area, I think it'll be interesting how this plays out because it's a totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the west side, they want a road usage charge that's based on distance.
Yeah.
On the east side, we want a road usage charge based on time.
Yeah.
Because for them, they might take an hour and a half to commute, but they only go 15 miles. Whereas for us, an hour and a half, we go a whole lot further. So that's kind of, I'm seeing both of those conversations happening.
Yeah, I would be concerned for us because it's just, even though in Pullman we don't necessarily, but to get to other places, so that would be, that's a bit concerning, but thanks.
Yeah. Councilmember Guido?
So related to the transportation and roads specifically, I don't know if you can comment on what legislative action took place on road maintenance and particularly highway maintenance as it relates to, the fact that we have a highway going through our downtown. I'm always thinking about that deferred maintenance on Grand Avenue. And then, of course, with the budget deficit, I doubt it got a lot of play.
So from the transportation side, first of all, their transportation budget is seriously underfunded related to the projects that they need to do, even just keeping up with the maintenance. And so because of that, they're more focused on where is congestion and where are there fatalities. And we've for years, tried to improve the entrances just into Pullman, and they look at it and say, you haven't had a fatality there, so we don't have an interest in trying to improve that space. So they're really focused on those pieces. And so Pullman, and we have 2 highways that run through our town, and that's the reason why there's not a lot of focus in that area.
Okay.
Councilmember DeLira?
I just have one question. Could you elaborate more on the shared streets designation option? What does that open up for us?
The which one now?
The shared streets designation?
The shared streets, and I can't tell you that one all just off the top of my head, but so if you think about the complete streets concept is kind of that shared streets, where you can have some designation options, where what they do is actually take the street and it becomes a shared street, so they reduce the speed down enough that if someone's walking on it or biking on it, so it reduces the speed in order to make it safe for all to be able to use that space at the same time, as opposed to having one area for people to walk, one area for bike. It's a shared type thing. Okay, so this just tees you up for the next council meeting where we start the discussion related to thinking about what is it that how do we want to craft our legislative agenda in order to have the greatest impact for our community. And the reason why I brought you some of these different bills is so that you understand some of the impact that the legislation is having as it relates to funding and some of the different zoning pieces. And with that, the next item is adjournment. So I would entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.